The wedding dress weighed 10 pounds, maybe more. Tulle and lace and ivory silk that had cost 3 months of my salary at the gallery where I worked. Where I used to work. Past tense now. Because I'd walked out this morning without explanation, without notice, leaving my boss's angry voicemails piling up on a phone I'd turned off hours ago. My hands shook as I stood outside the Corinthian Hotel, Manhattan's most exclusive venue, where they were hosting some kind of charity gala tonight. The kind of event that required invitations printed on cardstock thicker than most people's paychecks. The kind of event where men like Vincent Castellano made appearances to maintain the illusion of legitimacy. The doorman eyed me with barely concealed suspicion. A woman in a wedding dress, alone, at 8 o'clock on a Thursday evening, clearly didn't fit the usual profile of guests arriving in town cars and designer gowns. "I'm here for the gala," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I'm meeting someone." He looked me up and down, taking in the dress that was too bridal, too desperate, too obviously wrong for the occasion. But something in my expression must have convinced him I wasn't worth the confrontation, because he stepped aside. Ballroom's on the 3rd floor. I gathered the skirt of my dress and walked past him, my heels clicking against marble that probably cost more per square foot than my entire apartment. The lobby was all gold fixtures and crystal chandeliers, the kind of wealth that didn't need to announce itself because it simply was. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. The elevator ride to the 3rd floor lasted 30 seconds that felt like 30 years. I caught my reflection in the mirrored walls. Pale face, too thin from the past 6 weeks of barely eating, dark circles under my eyes that concealer couldn't quite hide, hair pulled back in a style that had been meant for a ceremony that never happened. I looked exactly like what I was. A woman who'd lost everything and was making one final, desperate play to get it back. The ballroom doors were open, music and conversation spilling into the hallway. I stepped inside and was immediately swallowed by a sea of New York's elite. Old money and new money and criminal money, all mingling together in designer clothes and expensive jewelry, pretending the lines between them didn't exist. I scanned the crowd, my heart hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. And then I saw him. Vincent Castellano stood near the bar, surrounded by men in tailored suits, who looked like they'd kill without hesitation if he asked them to. He wore black tonight, perfectly fitted, his dark hair styled in that way that managed to look both careless and intentional. Even from across the room, he commanded attention. People moved around him like planets orbiting a sun, drawn by gravity they couldn't resist. He looked exactly the same as he had 6 weeks ago. Exactly the same as he had the last time I'd seen him, standing in the doorway of the church, where I'd waited in this very dress, watching him walk away without a word. I moved through the crowd, my dress catching on chairs and bumping into people who shot me irritated glances. I didn't care. I couldn't care about anything except reaching him, making him look at me, making him explain why he'd destroyed everything we'd built. He was laughing at something one of his men had said, his hand wrapped around a glass of what was probably scotch. The laugh didn't reach his eyes. It never had. Not even in our private moments when I'd thought I was seeing the real him. I was 10 feet away when he saw me. Our eyes met across the crowd, and for one breathtaking moment, I saw recognition flash across his face. Saw something that might have been surprise or regret or pain. But then it was gone, replaced by a coldness that made my blood freeze. He looked away, just like that. As if I were a stranger, as if the past 8 months meant nothing. I stopped walking, my body refusing to process what had just happened. He'd seen me, I knew he had, but he'd deliberately, consciously chosen to look away, to turn back to his conversation like I didn't exist. Vincent. My voice came out smaller than I'd intended, barely audible over the music and conversation. He didn't react, didn't turn, didn't acknowledge that I'd spoken. "Vincent," louder this time, drawing attention from the people nearby. I saw heads turn, curiosity sparking in eyes that had been dulled by too much champagne and small talk. One of his men, a tall guy with a scar running along his jaw, stepped toward me. "Ma'am, you need to. I'm talking to Vincent." I pushed past him, closing the distance until I was right there, close enough to touch him, close enough to smell the cologne I used to bury my face in. "Vincent, please, just look at me." He took a sip of his scotch, his gaze fixed on something across the room, something that wasn't me. The humiliation burned hotter than any pain I'd felt in the past 6 weeks. Hotter than waking up alone on what should have been our wedding day. Hotter than the sympathetic looks from the few friends I'd told. Hotter than my mother's "I told you so" silence. "I wore the dress," I said, my voice breaking. I wore it because I thought if you saw me in it, you'd remember. You'd remember what we were supposed to be. Nothing. Not even a flicker of response. The man with the scar touched my elbow, gentle but firm. Ma'am, Mr. Castellano is busy. You should. I gave up everything for you. The words exploded out of me, too loud, too raw, drawing even more attention. My job, my apartment, my family. I walked away from all of it because you said you loved me. Because you promised me forever. Vincent finally moved. He set down his glass with careful precision, straightened his cuffs, and then he walked away. Just turned and walked toward the other side of the ballroom like I was nothing, like I'd never been anything. I stood there in my wedding dress, surrounded by strangers who were now staring at me with a mixture of pity and scandal-hungry interest, and felt something inside me shatter. The man with the scar was saying something about escorting me out. Someone else was asking if I needed medical attention. I heard the whispers starting, spreading through the crowd like wildfire. Who is she? Did you see the dress? Castellano's ex, maybe. God, how embarrassing. I should have left. Should have salvaged what little dignity I had left and walked out with my head high, but I couldn't move. Couldn't do anything except watch Vincent's back as he disappeared into the crowd, taking with him every hope I'd been stupid enough to harbor. Section 1. The Humble World, 6 weeks earlier. 6 weeks before I put on that wedding dress and humiliated myself in front of Manhattan's elite. I was someone different. Someone with a life that made sense. I stood in the Graham Gallery on the Lower East Side, adjusting the lighting on a sculpture that our newest artist had installed that morning. The piece was beautiful in a disturbing way, twisted metal that somehow conveyed both violence and grace. Sophia, the Hendricks are here for their consultation. I turned to find my boss, Gerald, hovering in the doorway with that particular expression that meant I was about to deal with difficult clients. The Hendricks were old money, the kind who collected art like they collected properties, more interested in investment potential than actual beauty. I'll be right there. I smoothed down my black dress, the simple sheath I wore to work because it was professional and forgettable, the kind of outfit that let the art speak instead of the person presenting it. The consultation took 2 hours. Mrs. Hendricks wanted something bold but not too bold for her Hamptons summer home, something that would make a statement but not clash with the drapes. I smiled and nodded and showed her pieces I knew she'd hate until she finally settled on something safe and expensive. By the time they left, it was past 7. The gallery was supposed to close at 6, but Gerald expected dedication, which apparently meant working unpaid overtime. My phone buzzed as I was locking up. A text from my mother. Sunday dinner, 6 p.m. Don't be late. Not an invitation. A summons. My mother didn't do invitations. I was about to respond when I saw him. He stood across the street, leaning against a black Mercedes that probably cost more than I'd make in 5 years. Tall, dark-haired, wearing a suit that had definitely been tailored specifically for his body. He was looking directly at me. My first instinct was fear. A woman alone, late evening, strange man watching her. But something about his posture suggested he was waiting, not threatening. I finished locking the gallery door, hyper-aware of his gaze following my movements. When I glanced back, he was crossing the street. Sophia Moretti? His voice was deep, accented with something that suggested Italian heritage, though his English was perfect. Who's asking? I kept my keys positioned between my fingers, a sad excuse for a weapon but better than nothing. My name is Vincent Castellano. He stopped at a respectful distance, hands visible, posture non-threatening. I've been admiring your work at the gallery. The work isn't mine. I'm just the assistant curator. I meant your eye. The way you arrange pieces, the way you guide clients toward what they actually want rather than what they think they want. A small smile curved his mouth. I watched you with the Hendricks woman. Very skillful. Alarm bells rang in my head. You watched me? I've been considering a purchase. I wanted to understand who I'd be working with. He pulled something from his jacket, a business card, heavy stock with minimal text. Just his name and a phone number. I'm looking for someone to curate a private collection. Someone with taste and discretion. I took the card, studying it. What kind of collection? The kind that requires both. His dark eyes held mine. I'm prepared to pay well. Very well. But I need someone I can trust. Trust. The word hung between us, weighted with implication. I have a job, I said carefully. I'm aware. I'm offering you a better one. He gestured toward the gallery. How much does Gerald pay you? That's not really $38,000 a year, plus the promise of a promotion that never materializes. His voice was matter of fact, not cruel, just stating facts he clearly knew. I'm offering triple that to start. More if the work is satisfactory. $114,000. More money than I'd ever imagined making. Enough to move out of my studio apartment, to pay off my student loans, to finally feel like I wasn't drowning. Why me? I asked. There are plenty of curators with more experience. Because I've done my research. He took a step closer, and I caught the scent of expensive cologne. You're talented, undervalued, and you need the money. That makes you someone who'll appreciate the opportunity and work hard to keep it. You make it sound like a transaction. Everything is a transaction, Sophia. The only question is whether the terms are favorable. He glanced at his watch. A Patek Philippe that probably cost more than a car. Think about it. Call me when you decide. He walked away before I could respond, sliding into the Mercedes with fluid grace. The car pulled away from the curb, leaving me standing on the street with his business card in my hand and my heart racing. I should have thrown the card away, should have recognized the red flags, the too good offer, the way he knew too much about me, the quiet menace underlying his polite words. Instead, I went home to my 400-square-foot studio, looked at the stack of bills on my counter, and made a choice that would change everything. I called him the next day. Section 2. The Fateful Encounter. Vincent's private collection was housed in a penthouse in Tribeca that took up the entire top floor of a building his family owned. When I arrived for our first meeting, I was escorted up by a security guard who looked like he could break me in half without effort. The elevator opened directly into the penthouse. No hallway, no other apartments, just straight into a space that was part art gallery, part fortress. Sophia. Vincent appeared from a side room, dressed casually today in dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. Somehow he looked even more dangerous in casual clothes than he had in the suit. Thank you for coming. Thank you for the opportunity. I stepped inside, trying not to gape at the space. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, original hardwood floors, and the art god. The art was stunning. Pieces I recognized from auctions, works by artists I'd studied in school, collections that should have been in museums. You have an incredible eye, I said, moving toward a Basquiat that I'd only ever seen in photographs. My father started the collection. I've been adding to it. He came to stand beside me, close enough that I could feel the heat of his body. Do you know what I look for in art, Sophia? What? Truth. The kind of honesty that only comes when an artist is willing to bleed onto the canvas. His voice was low, intense. That's what I want you to help me find. Not safe pieces that increase in value. Real art. The kind that makes you feel something. I turned to look at him, surprised by the passion in his voice. This wasn't what I'd expected from a man who'd approached me like a business transaction. I can do that, I said. Good. He smiled, and for the first time, it reached his eyes. Then let's begin. That was 3 months ago. 3 months of working together almost every day. Of him trusting my judgment on acquisitions that cost 6 and 7 figures. Of conversations that started about art and ended somewhere far more personal. 3 months of slowly, inevitably falling for a man I knew was dangerous. I learned things about Vincent in those months. Learned that he took his coffee black and could spend hours discussing the symbolism in a single painting. Learned that he had a scar on his ribs from a knife fight when he was 17, and that he'd learned to speak 4 languages because his father believed ignorance was weakness. I learned that the family business everyone whispered about was real, that the Castellano name carried weight in circles I'd been blissfully ignorant of my whole life, and I learned that I didn't care. The moment I knew I was in love with him came 4 months into working together. We were at an auction house, bidding on a piece by a relatively unknown artist I'd discovered. The bidding had gone higher than we'd planned, and Vincent leaned close to whisper in my ear, "Are you sure about this?" "I'm sure." My hand found his under the table, squeezing gently. "Trust me." He raised his paddle one more time, winning the piece for $50,000 more than we'd budgeted. And when we got back to the penthouse that night, when the painting was hung and lit perfectly, he pulled me into his arms and kissed me for the first time. "I trust you," he'd murmured against my lips. "Completely." That was the beginning of us. Secret at first, because Vincent said his world was complicated, and he needed to handle things carefully, but then less secret, until I was spending most nights at the penthouse, until my studio apartment became just a place I kept my mail, until he asked me to marry him on a Tuesday morning. No ring, no ceremony, just a quiet question over coffee. "Marry me, Sophia." I'd stared at him, coffee cup frozen halfway to my lips. "What?" "Marry me. Move in here officially. Let me take care of you." His dark eyes were serious. Let me give you everything. I should have asked questions. Should have demanded to know more about his life, his business, what marrying him would really mean. But I was 26, and in love and stupid enough to believe that love was enough. Yes, I'd said. Yes, I'll marry you. He'd smiled then, one of his rare, genuine smiles, and pulled me into his lap. We'll do it soon. Small ceremony. Just us and the people who matter. We'd set a date. 6 weeks away. Enough time to plan something simple but meaningful. I'd found the dress, given notice at the gallery, told my mother I was getting married to a man she'd never met. Everything was perfect. Until the morning of the wedding, when I woke up alone in the penthouse with a note on Vincent's pillow. I'm sorry. I can't do this. Don't try to find me. No explanation. No phone call. Just 7 words that destroyed everything. I'd waited at the church anyway, wearing the dress, holding the bouquet, convinced there had been some mistake, convinced he'd show up and explain and everything would be fine. He never came. That was 6 weeks ago. Section 3. The recognition. After the gala, after Vincent walked away from me like I was nothing, I somehow made it back to my apartment. The one I'd sublet because I was supposed to be living in the penthouse. The one I'd had to beg to get back when the wedding fell apart. I sat on the floor in my wedding dress, too exhausted to even cry anymore, and tried to understand what had just happened. He'd looked at me. I knew he had. I'd seen the recognition in his eyes before he'd shut it down, before he'd chosen to pretend I didn't exist, which meant this wasn't amnesia or a mistake, or some elaborate misunderstanding. He'd left me deliberately, and when I'd confronted him, he'd rejected me deliberately. The question was why. My phone buzzed. I'd turned it back on during the cab ride home, and now the messages were flooding in. My mother, cold and clipped. We need to talk about your behavior tonight. How she already knew about the gala. I had no idea. But she always knew everything. Maya, my former roommate and only real friend. Oh my God, are you okay? Someone posted a video of you at some gala. Call me. And then a number I didn't recognize. Miss Moretti. We need to speak. It's about Vincent. Alessandro, Vincent's right-hand man. The one with the scar who'd tried to escort me out tonight. I stared at the message for a long moment. Every instinct screamed that I should delete it, block the number, cut all ties to Vincent and his world. But my fingers were already typing a response. When and where? The answer came immediately. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Cafe Reggio. Come alone. I showed up at Cafe Reggio at exactly 10 the next morning, still feeling hollowed out from the previous night. I'd changed out of the wedding dress finally, burning it in my building's trash incinerator and watching the ivory silk blacken and curl. Alessandro was already there, sitting at a corner table with his back to the wall, a position that let him see everyone who entered. He stood when he saw me, a gesture that seemed oddly courteous for a man I was pretty sure had killed people. Miss Moretti, thank you for coming. Why did you want to meet? I sat across from him, not bothering with pleasantries. He studied me for a moment, his expression unreadable. Then he slid a photograph across the table. It showed Vincent and me, taken from a distance. We were walking together near the penthouse, his arm around my waist, both of us laughing about something. I remembered that day. It had been 2 weeks before the wedding. Where did you get this? I asked. It was delivered to Vincent 3 days before your wedding, along with a message. What kind of message? Alessandro pulled out his phone, scrolled through something, then turned it toward me. The message was short, typed in all caps. End it or she dies. You have 48 hours. The world tilted. What is this? A threat from the Marchesi family. They're rivals of ours, have been for 3 generations. His voice was matter of fact, like he was discussing the weather instead of death threats. They found out about you, about the wedding. They gave Vincent a choice. Let me guess, call off the wedding, or they'd kill me. Yes. I stared at the message, my mind racing. So he just gave up? He didn't fight? He didn't even tell me? He left you to save your life, Miss Moretti. Alessandro's tone was gentle now. The Marcheses don't make empty threats. They would have killed you. Maybe not immediately, maybe not obviously, but they would have found a way. He could have told me. Could have explained instead of just disappearing. My voice broke. Do you know what it was like? Standing there in that church, thinking he just changed his mind? Thinking I wasn't enough? He knew you'd try to stay if he told you the truth. Knew you'd think love was enough to overcome the danger. Alessandro leaned forward. He was protecting you the only way he knew how. By breaking my heart, by keeping you alive. I laughed, the sound bitter. And last night? Walking past me like I was nothing? How was that protecting me? Something uncomfortable flickered across Alessandro's face. The Marchises have people everywhere. If Vincent acknowledged you publicly, if he showed any sign that you still mattered to him, they'd know. They'd use you against him. So I'm supposed to what? Just accept that he's gone? Move on with my life while he pretends I never existed? Yes. The word was flat, final. That's exactly what you're supposed to do. I stood abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. Then why tell me any of this? Why not just let me think he was an asshole who got cold feet? Alessandro stood too, reaching into his jacket. For a moment, I tensed, some primal part of my brain screaming weapon, but he just pulled out an envelope. Because he asked me to. He wanted you to know the truth, even if it doesn't change anything. He held out the envelope. He also wanted you to have this. I took it with shaking hands. Inside was a check, made out to me, for an amount that made my vision blur. $250,000. Blood money, I whispered. Severance pay. For the job you gave up, the life you rearranged. He wanted to make sure you'd be okay. I looked up at Alessandro, at this man who killed for a living, who served Vincent without question. Does he love me? Does he love me? The question hung in the air between us. Alessandro's expression softened in a way I wouldn't have thought possible. Miss Moretti, I've known Vincent since we were boys. I've seen him with dozens of women over the years. Beautiful women, powerful women, women who could give him anything. He paused. But I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looked at you. Not once. Past tense. Present tense. He looks at your photograph every night before he goes to sleep. Keeps it in his desk drawer where no one can see. Alessandro's voice was quiet. He loves you enough to let you go. To let you hate him if it means you're safe. The words should have been comforting. Instead, they made everything worse. Tell him. I stopped, not sure what I wanted to say. Tell him I hate him. Tell him I understand. Tell him to come back. Tell him to stay away forever. Tell him I'm cashing the check, I said finally. And I never want to see him again. It was a lie. We both knew it was a lie. But Alessandro nodded like it was the truth. I'll tell him. I left the cafe with the envelope in my purse and tears burning behind my eyes. Made it 3 blocks before I had to stop, leaning against a building as sobs tore through me. He loved me. He'd walked away to protect me. And knowing that somehow made it hurt worse, not better. Because what was I supposed to do with that information? How was I supposed to move on knowing that somewhere in this city, Vincent Castellano was looking at my photograph and missing me the way I missed him? How was I supposed to heal from a wound that was inflicted out of love? I cashed the check. It felt like betrayal somehow. Like accepting the money meant accepting that we were really over. But I also couldn't afford pride when my bank account had $17 in it and rent was due in a week. The money hit my account on a Tuesday. By Wednesday, I'd paid off my student loans, covered 3 months of rent in advance, and still had enough left over to breathe for the first time in years. By Thursday, someone tried to kill me. I was walking home from a job interview assistant position at a smaller gallery. Half the pay Gerald had given me, but beggars couldn't be choosers when the black SUV jumped the curb. Later, I'd remember it in fragments, the screech of tires, someone screaming, my body hitting the sidewalk as hands shoved me out of the way, the SUV missing me by inches before speeding off, and Alessandro, appearing out of nowhere, hauling me to my feet with a grip that was gentle despite his urgency. Are you hurt? He was checking me over, professional and thorough. How did you? My legs were shaking so badly I could barely stand. We've had people watching you. He pulled out his phone, barking orders in rapid Italian. That wasn't an accident, Miss Moretti. Someone just tried to kill you. The words didn't make sense. But you said if Vincent stayed away, if he didn't acknowledge me, I'd be safe. Something dark crossed Alessandro's face. The Marchises don't play by the rules we thought they did. Get in the car. A black Mercedes pulled up, not the same one that had tried to run me down, but similar enough to make me flinch. Alessandro opened the door, his hand on my elbow. I'm not getting in a car with you. I'm going to the police. And tell them what? That a Mafia family is trying to kill you because you were engaged to another Mafia boss? His voice was harsh now. The police can't protect you from this, Miss Moretti. We can. We, meaning Vincent. Yes, I should have run. Should have screamed for help. found a cop, disappeared into witness protection or whatever normal people did when criminals tried to murder them. But normal had stopped being an option the moment I'd fallen in love with Vincent Castellano. I got in the car. The drive took 40 minutes, heading north out of Manhattan into areas I didn't recognize. We pulled up to a building in Riverdale that looked like something out of a European postcard, all stone and iron gates and security that was probably invisible but definitely present. "Where are we?" I asked as Alessandro helped me out. "Somewhere safe. One of Vincent's properties." "Vincent's here?" "He's on his way." The interior was just as impressive as the exterior. High ceilings, original crown molding, furniture that managed to be both antique and comfortable. A woman in her 50s appeared from a side room, her smile warm despite the circumstances. "Miss Moretti, I'm Teresa. I manage the household," Alessandro called ahead. "I've prepared the blue bedroom for you." "I'm not staying." "Yes, you are." Vincent's voice came from behind me. I turned to find him standing in the entrance, looking like he'd been running. His hair was disheveled, his tie loose, his expression thunderous. "What happened?" He directed the question at Alessandro. "Not me." "Black SUV, deliberate attempt. She's unharmed." Vincent's eyes finally met mine, and I saw something raw in them before he locked it down. "Good. Teresa, make sure she has everything she needs. Alessandro, I want the surveillance footage and I want to know who gave the order." "Vincent," I started. "Not now." He was already turning away, pulling out his phone. "I have calls to make." And just like that, he disappeared down a hallway, leaving me standing there with Teresa, who was pretending she hadn't just witnessed that awkward exchange. "Let me show you to your room," she said gently. The blue bedroom was on the second floor, overlooking gardens that were probably beautiful in daylight. Now they were just shadows and moonlight. The room itself was larger than my entire apartment. With a 4-poster bed and an ensuite bathroom that had a tub big enough to swim in. "There are clothes in the closet," Teresa said. "I'll have dinner sent up shortly. Is there anything you need?" "Answers," I said. "I need answers." Her expression softened with sympathy. "Mr. Castellano will speak with you when he's ready. Until then, try to rest. You've had a traumatic day." She left, closing the door softly behind her. And I was alone in a bedroom in a house owned by a man who'd broken my heart to save my life, and who was now apparently the only thing standing between me and death. I didn't rest. I paced. I checked my phone, 12 missed calls from Maya, 3 from my mother, dozens of texts asking where I was. I started to reply, then stopped. What would I even say? "Sorry, can't talk," hiding from the mob in my ex-fiancé's safe house? A knock on the door made me jump. "Come in." Vincent entered. And I hated that my first instinct was still to go to him, to fall into his arms and pretend the past 6 weeks hadn't happened. "We need to talk," he said. "You think?" He moved to the window, keeping distance between us. Smart, because I wasn't sure if I wanted to kiss him or kill him. "The Marcheses know about the money I gave you. They see it as proof that you still matter to me. So this is my fault? I should have refused the check? You should have left the city like I hoped you would." He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident in every line of his body. "Taken the money and started over somewhere else, somewhere they couldn't find you. You hoped I'd run away." The words tasted bitter. "Instead of what, fighting for us?" "There is no us, Sophia. There can't be, because you're protecting me." I moved closer, anger giving me courage. "Alessandro told me everything. The threat, the choice you made. Very noble, Vincent, very self-sacrificing. It kept you alive." It broke my heart. The words exploded out of me. "Do you know what it was like? Standing in that church, thinking you just didn't want me anymore? Spending 6 weeks believing I wasn't enough? You were always enough." His voice was rough now, control slipping. "You were everything." Past tense again, because it has to be past tense. He closed the distance between us in 3 strides, his hands gripping my shoulders. "They tried to kill you today, Sophia. If Alessandro hadn't been there, if our people hadn't been watching, you'd be dead right now. Dead because of me. Because I was selfish enough to think I could have something normal. So what's the plan? I hide here forever? You avoid me indefinitely?" "They tried to kill me anyway, Vincent. Your sacrifice didn't work." His hands tightened on my shoulders, his face inches from mine. "Then I'll find another way. I'll end this threat permanently." "By doing what? Starting a war? If that's what it takes." I stared at him, at this man I'd thought I knew, and saw the truth. He would burn down the world to keep me safe. and somehow that was both terrifying and the most romantic thing I'd ever heard. "I don't want you to start a war," I said quietly. "I want you to be honest with me. No more protection through lies. No more decisions made for me without my input. Sophia, those are my terms, Vincent. If I'm staying here, if I'm accepting your protection, then I need the truth, all of it. The threats, the danger, the plans you're making. I need to be part of this." He searched my face for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. "Okay. The truth." He released my shoulders and stepped back, putting distance between us again. "The Marchises have been trying to move into our territory for years. My father held them off, but barely. When he died, they saw an opening, and me. You were leverage, a weakness they could exploit." His voice was flat, controlled. "When they found out about the wedding, they gave me an ultimatum: end it or watch you die. I chose your life over my happiness. Very pragmatic, very necessary." He moved to the window again. "I thought that would be the end of it. You'd move on, find someone normal, live a life that didn't involve looking over your shoulder. But I didn't move on. No, you showed up at that gala in a wedding dress and made a scene that got photographed and posted online within an hour." There was no judgment in his tone, just statement of fact. "The Marchises saw it, realized you were still in the city, still accessible, so they tried to kill me to hurt you." "Yes." I sat on the edge of the bed, legs suddenly weak. "What happens now?" "Now you stay here where you're protected. I have the best security money can buy. Alessandro and a team of 6 will be watching you at all times." "For how long?" "Until I eliminate the threat." He turned from the window, his dark eyes meeting mine. "However long that takes. And then? Then you're free to go. Live your life. Forget about me." The words landed like blows. "You really think I can just forget about you? You'll have to." His voice was gentle now, almost tender. "Because even after the Marchises are handled, there will be others. There's always another threat, another family trying to move in, another enemy my father made that I have to deal with. This is my life, Sophia. This is what being with me means. So you've decided for me, again. I'm being realistic. You're being a coward." I stood, anger pushing away the fear and hurt. "You love me, I know you do. Alessandro told me. Alessandro talks too much. That you look at my picture every night. That you've never looked at anyone the way you look at me." I moved toward him. Was he lying? Vincent's jaw tightened. "No." "Then stop pushing me away. Stop making decisions about what I can and can't handle. I'm not some fragile thing that needs to be protected from the truth. You almost died today. And I'm still here. Still standing. Still willing to fight for this if you are." He stared at me, something warring in his expression. Then, so quickly I barely saw him move, he closed the distance between us and kissed me. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate and hungry and full of 6 weeks of separation and pain. His hands tangled in my hair. Mine gripped his shirt. And for a moment nothing existed except this, the two of us. Finally touching again. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against mine. "This is a terrible idea," he murmured. "Probably the worst I've ever had. You could still leave. Take the money. Start over somewhere safe." I could. I pulled back enough to meet his eyes. "But I won't. So stop asking." A slow smile curved his mouth. The first real smile I'd seen from him since before the wedding. "You're stubborn. You're controlling. We're a disaster. Completely." I kissed him again, softer this time. "But we're our disaster." Section 5. The glimpse behind the mask. Living in Vincent's safe house was like existing in a beautiful prison. Everything I could want was provided: gourmet meals from Teresa, a library full of books, gardens to walk in, but always with security watching, always with the awareness that I couldn't leave. The first week, I barely saw Vincent. He'd come back late, usually after I'd gone to bed, and be gone before I woke up. Alessandro said he was handling things, which I interpreted as doing whatever violent, illegal activities Mafia bosses did to eliminate threats. I tried not to think too hard about it. Maya had finally stopped calling after I'd sent her a carefully worded text. "I'm okay. Can't explain right now. Please don't worry." She'd responded with about 50 question marks and a threat to call the police, but I'd convinced her I was safe. Whether she believed me was another question. On the 8th day, Vincent showed up for dinner. I was in the library, curled up with a book I wasn't really reading, when Teresa found me. Mr. Castellano asked if you'd join him for dinner. In the dining room, it felt absurdly formal, being invited to dinner in the house where I was essentially being held captive. But I changed into one of the dresses that had appeared in the closet. Someone had gone to my apartment and packed my things, which was both thoughtful and invasive, and made my way downstairs. Vincent stood when I entered. That old-fashioned courtesy that always surprised me from a man who killed people for a living. He wore slacks and a dress shirt, no jacket, sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms. "Thank you for joining me," he said. Did I have a choice? A ghost of a smile. Always. Dinner was served some kind of pasta that Teresa had probably spent hours making, paired with wine I didn't drink because I was too nervous to trust alcohol. We ate in silence for a few minutes before I couldn't take it anymore. "Are you going to tell me what's happening? Or are we just going to pretend this is a normal dinner?" Vincent set down his fork. "The Marchises have agreed to a meeting." "That's good, right?" "Maybe. Meetings can go either way." He took a sip of his wine. "They could genuinely want to negotiate peace. Or it could be a trap." "When is it?" "Tomorrow night. Neutral territory, both sides limited security. And if it's a trap, then things get complicated." He said it so calmly, like discussing the possibility of his own death was just another business consideration. "You can't go," I heard myself say. "I have to. This is the only way to end this without all-out war." "Then take more security. Take an army. Don't walk into a situation where you could—" I couldn't finish the sentence. Vincent reached across the table, his hand covering mine. "I've been doing this my whole life, Sophia. I know how to handle dangerous men. That doesn't make me feel better. I know." His thumb traced circles on my palm. "But I need you to trust that I'll come back, that I'll handle this and keep both of us safe. I can't lose you again." The words came out smaller than I intended. 6 weeks was bad enough. I can't. If something happens to you. He stood, pulling me up with him, wrapping his arms around me in a way that felt like safety and home. "Nothing's going to happen to me. I promise." "You can't promise that. Watch me." He tilted my chin up, his dark eyes intense. "I have too much to come back to now. You think I'm going to let some rival family take me out when I finally got you back? We're not back together. We haven't even discussed." He kissed me, cutting off my protest. When he pulled away, he was smiling. "We can discuss it after the meeting. After this is over and you're safe. And if I want to discuss it now, then we discuss it now." He led me to the couch by the fireplace, pulling me down beside him. "What do you want to know?" "Everything." I wanted to know everything. But I started with the most important question. "Do you still love me?" "Yes." No hesitation. I never stopped. "Even when you walked past me at the gala?" Pain flickered across his face. "Especially then. Do you know how hard it was to see you in that dress and not react? To pretend you were nothing when you're everything? Then why?" "Because I thought if I could convince the Marchises you didn't matter, they'd leave you alone. I was wrong." His hand found mine again. "But I'm done making that mistake. Done pushing you away to protect you. If you want to be part of this, part of my life, then I'm not going to stop you anymore." "Just like that?" "Just like that." He pulled me closer, his arm around my shoulders. "But you need to understand what you're agreeing to. My life is dangerous. There will always be threats. Always be people trying to use you to get to me. I can protect you, but I can't promise normal. I don't want normal." I rested my head on his shoulder. "I just want you." We sat there in front of the fire, wrapped around each other, and for the first time in 6 weeks, I felt like I could breathe. Like maybe this impossible thing could actually work. "Tell me about your family," I said eventually. "The real story, not the sanitized version." Vincent was quiet for a moment. Then he started talking. His father had built the Castellano empire from nothing, starting as muscle for another family before breaking off to form his own organization. Vincent had grown up watching his father navigate violence and politics in equal measure, learning that power was the only thing that mattered. "My mother hated it," he said quietly. "She wanted him to go legitimate, to build something our family could be proud of. She died when I was 15. Car accident, though we never proved it wasn't orchestrated by rivals. I'm sorry. After she died, my father got worse, more ruthless, more paranoid. He taught me that love was weakness, that caring about anything made you vulnerable." Vincent's arm tightened around me. "I believed him, right up until I met you." "What changed?" "You did. You looked at a Basquiat and saw beauty instead of investment potential. You talked about art like it mattered more than money. You were. He paused, searching for words. You were real. In a world full of people who wanted something from me, you just wanted to discuss symbolism in paintings. I definitely wanted something from you. I smiled against his shoulder. I wanted that salary. He laughed, the sound rusty but genuine. Fair. But you earned every penny. The collection you built, it's the only thing in my life that's purely mine. Not inherited, not expected. Just something beautiful I chose. Like me? Exactly like you. We talked for hours. He told me about growing up in a world where trust was currency and betrayal was expected. About learning to read people, to see threats before they materialized. About the weight of inheriting an empire he'd never asked for. I told him about my childhood with an emotionally distant mother and a father who died when I was 12. About working 3 jobs to get through art school. About the loneliness of being good at something that didn't pay enough to live on. Is that why you said yes so quickly? He asked. When I offered you the job? Partly, but also. I hesitated. Also because you saw me. Not as an assistant or a curator or someone's daughter, just as Sophia, who happened to know a lot about art. I did see you. Still do. He pressed a kiss to my temple. Every single day, the mantel clock chimed midnight, and Vincent reluctantly pulled away. I should let you sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. Stay. The word came out before I could stop it. Just for tonight. I don't want to be alone. He searched my face, then nodded. Okay. We went upstairs together, the tension between us shifting into something charged. In the bedroom, Vincent hesitated at the door. I can sleep in the chair. Don't be ridiculous. I pulled back the covers. We're adults. We can share a bed. He shed his shirt and slacks, leaving him in boxer briefs that left very little to the imagination. I changed in the bathroom, emerging in the silk pajamas that had appeared in my drawer, and tried not to stare at the expanse of his chest. We lay in the darkness, carefully not touching, the space between us, electric. Sophia? Yeah? I'm glad you wore that dress to the gala. I turned to face him, barely making out his profile in the dim light. Why? It was humiliating, because it meant you still cared, that you hadn't moved on. His hand found mine under the covers. I know I have no right to be glad about that, but I am. I tried to move on, I admitted. I went on 2 dates. Nice guys. Normal jobs, but all I could think about was you. I didn't date anyone, not even to maintain appearances. Couldn't stomach it. He shifted closer, our faces inches apart now. Every woman I saw I compared to you, and they all came up short. That's probably not healthy. Nothing about us is healthy. His thumb traced my jawline. But I don't care anymore. I'm done pretending I can live without you. What if the meeting tomorrow doesn't go well? What if... He kissed me. Soft and sweet and full of promise. Then we'll deal with it together. No more secrets. No more protection through lies. Partners. Equal. Partners, I agreed. We fell asleep, tangled together, and for the first time since he'd left me at that church, I felt like I was home. Section 6. The complication. I woke to an empty bed and a note on Vincent's pillow. Meeting moved up to this morning. Didn't want to wake you. Alessandro is outside your door. Stay inside until I get back. V. My stomach dropped. The meeting was happening now. Right now, while I was safe in this house, Vincent was walking into potential danger. I tried to go back to sleep. Couldn't. Tried to read. Couldn't focus. Finally, I got up and paced, checking my phone obsessively for texts that didn't come. Alessandro knocked around 10. Miss Moretti? Mr. Castellano asked me to keep you company. Is he okay? The meeting is still in progress. That's all I know. I let him in, grateful for the distraction. We sat in the library, making awkward small talk, until I couldn't take it anymore. How long have you known Vincent? Since we were 12. We grew up in the same neighborhood. And you've always worked for him? For him. With him. There's a difference. Alessandro smiled slightly. Vincent doesn't treat his people as servants. We're family. Even though he orders you to do illegal things? Even though. No shame in his voice. This life isn't for everyone. But it's ours, and we protect our own. Is that what I am now? Part of the family? Alessandro studied me for a long moment. You've been part of the family since Vincent first brought you to the penthouse. We all saw how he looked at you. Knew you were different. Different how? Different like he'd burn the world down to keep you safe. Different like you might actually be worth it. Before I could respond, Alessandro's phone rang. He answered in Italian, his expression shifting from neutral to alarmed. "What?" I demanded. "What's wrong?" He hung up, already moving toward the door. "Stay here. Lock the door behind me. Don't open it for anyone but me or Vincent." "Alessandro, the meeting was a trap. Vincent's been taken." The world stopped. "Taken where?" "We don't know yet, but we'll find him." He paused at the door. "Miss Moretti, I need you to trust me. Stay inside. Stay safe. Vincent would never forgive me if something happened to you while he was gone." Then he was gone. And I was alone with the knowledge that Vincent, the man who'd promised to come back, who'd promised we'd figure this out together, was in the hands of people who wanted him dead. I should have stayed inside like Alessandro ordered, should have locked the door and waited for updates. Instead, I called the only other person who might be able to help. "Maya, I need you to do something for me, and I need you not to ask questions until after." Maya showed up at the safe house 40 minutes later, somehow having convinced the security at the gate that she was my sister. She burst into the library where I was frantically searching Vincent's study for anything that might help. "Viv, what the actual hell is going on? You disappear for over a week, send cryptic texts, and now you're calling me from some mansion in Riverdale talking about needing my car?" She stopped, taking in my appearance still in pajamas, hair unbrushed, probably looking half crazed. "Are you being held captive? Should I call the police?" "No police." I pulled her inside, closing the door. "And yes, kind of, but it's complicated." "Complicated how?" So I told her. Everything. The job with Vincent, falling in love, the wedding that never happened, the Marchese threat, the attempted hit and run, and now Vincent being taken. Maya listened with increasingly wide eyes, sinking into one of the leather chairs. "So let me get this straight," she said when I finished. "Your ex-fiancé is a Mafia boss who left you at the altar to save your life, and now he's been kidnapped by a rival crime family, and you want to." "What exactly?" "Find him." "Viv, that's insane. That's literally the most insane thing you've ever said. And you once tried to convince me that eating pizza with a fork was sophisticated. I can't just sit here and wait." I resumed my frantic searching through Vincent's desk. There has to be something here. Some way to track him or contact the Marcheses or get yourself killed. Maya stood, gripping my shoulders. "Listen to me. I love you, but this is not your world. These are dangerous people. You need to let the professionals handle it. The professionals work for Vincent. They'll try to save him, but they'll also prioritize not starting an all-out war. They'll be careful, strategic." I met her eyes. "I don't want careful. I want him back." "And how exactly do you plan to accomplish that?" I pulled out my phone, scrolling to a number I'd memorized but never called. The one from the card Vincent had given me our first night together. His personal line. The Marcheses took his phone, but they might not have destroyed it yet. And if it's still on, we can track it. "We?" "Viv, I work in marketing. I don't know how to track phones. But your brother does." Maya's younger brother, Leo, was some kind of tech genius who'd gotten into MIT at 16. "You said he was home for winter break, right?" Maya stared at me. "You want me to get my baby brother involved in tracking a Mafia boss's phone so you can mount a rescue mission?" "Yes. You've lost your mind." "Completely." I grabbed her hand. "But I love him, Maya. And I can't lose him again. Not like this." She studied my face for a long moment, then sighed. "Leo's going to think this is the coolest thing that's ever happened to him. He's been dying for a real-world application of his skills." 2 hours later, we had a location. Leo, speaking rapid-fire over speakerphone, had somehow traced Vincent's phone to a warehouse in Red Hook, Brooklyn. "The signal's stationary," he said, excitement clear in his voice. "And there's been no activity on the phone for the past 3 hours. Either the battery died or they disabled it but didn't destroy it." I finished. "Can you send me the exact coordinates?" "Already done." "Viv, this is so cool. Are you really going to—" "Thank you, Leo. Delete all record of this call." I hung up before he could ask more questions. Maya was staring at me. "Please tell me you're going to call Alessandro now. Give him the location and let trained killers handle the trained killers." "I will. But I'm going too." "That's suicide." "Maybe. But it's my choice." I was already moving, grabbing one of the coats from the closet. "You can leave. Take your car and go. I'll call a cab." "Like hell." Maya stood too, resignation on her face. If you're doing this stupidly suicidal thing, I'm driving. Someone needs to be there to say, I told you so when it inevitably goes wrong. I hugged her, quick and fierce. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just try not to die. I called Alessandro from Maya's car. He answered on the first ring. Miss Moretti, I told you to stay. Red Hook, Warehouse District, corner of Van Brunt and Beard Street. Vincent's phone is there. Silence. Then, how do you know this? Does it matter? Are you going to check it out or not? I'm sending a team now. His voice was tight. And you're staying exactly where you are. Of course, I lied, and hung up. Maya glanced at me as she drove. You know he's going to kill you when he finds out you didn't stay put. He'll have to get in line behind Vincent. The warehouse was exactly the kind of place you'd expect a kidnapping to happen, abandoned, industrial, surrounded by other empty buildings that wouldn't notice gunfire. Maya parked 2 blocks away, in the shadows where her car wouldn't be spotted. Last chance to change your mind, she said. I was already getting out. Stay here. If I'm not back in 20 minutes, call Alessandro and tell him where I am. Viv, please, I need to know you're safe. She nodded reluctantly, and I moved toward the warehouse, staying in the shadows, my heart hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. The side entrance was unlocked. Amateur hour, or a trap. Probably a trap. I slipped inside anyway. The warehouse was one large open space, dimly lit by windows high up near the ceiling. Shipping containers were stacked along the walls, creating a maze of metal corridors, and in the center, tied to a chair, was Vincent. He was alive, bruised, bleeding from a cut above his eye, but alive. Relief hit me so hard I nearly sobbed. 2 men stood guard, both armed, both looking bored. They clearly weren't expecting trouble. I needed a weapon, a distraction, something, anything that would... Well, what do we have here? I spun to find a 3rd man blocking my exit, tall, heavily muscled, with a gun pointed directly at me. Looks like Castellano's little girlfriend came to play hero. He raised his voice. Boss, we got a visitor. More footsteps. A man in an expensive suit emerged from behind one of the shipping containers, flanked by 2 more armed guards. He was older, maybe 50, with silver hair and cold eyes that assessed me like I was a particularly interesting insect. Sophia Moretti. He knew my name. Of course he knew my name. I'm Carlo Marchesi. I've heard so much about you. Vincent's head snapped up, his eyes finding mine. The fury and fear I saw there made my breath catch. Let her go, he said, his voice rough. This is between us, Carlo. She's not part of this. Oh, but she is. Carlo moved closer to me, and I forced myself not to flinch. She's the reason you're here, after all. The weakness we've been looking for. You wanted me. You have me. Let her walk out and we can discuss terms. Terms? Carlo laughed. Vincent, you don't seem to understand your position. You're tied to a chair. Your people have no idea where you are. And your girlfriend just walked into my warehouse with no backup and no plan. He turned to me. Did you have a plan, Miss Moretti? I met his eyes, refusing to show fear. I came to negotiate. Negotiate what? His freedom for mine. The words came out steady despite the terror coursing through me. That's what you want, right? Leverage? Something to use against him? Take me instead. Let him go. No. Vincent's voice was sharp. Sophia, don't. Why would I trade when I can have both? Carlos circled me slowly. With you, I can make Vincent do anything I want. Sign over territory, give up operations, betray his own people, all to keep you safe. He won't do that. He'll let me die first. Will he? Carlo looked at Vincent. She seems very confident. Should we test that theory? He pulled out his own gun, pressing it to my temple. The metal was cold against my skin. Vincent went absolutely still, every muscle in his body tense. Carlo, don't. Beg me. What? Beg me not to kill her. On your knees if you weren't tied up. Beg me like the pathetic, lovesick fool you've become. I watched something break in Vincent's expression. All the pride, all the control, shattering under the weight of having a gun to my head. Please. His voice was barely above a whisper. Please don't hurt her. I'll give you whatever you want. Territory, money, my entire operation. Just let her go. There it is. Carlo sounded satisfied. The great Vincent Castellano, reduced to begging. Your father would be ashamed. My father's dead. And if you hurt her, you will be too. Empty threats from a man tied to a chair. The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space. For a moment, I thought I'd been shot. But Carlo stumbled backward, blood blooming on his shoulder, his gun clattering to the floor. Alessandro stood in the doorway, his weapon still raised, flanked by at least a dozen men. "Let them both go," he said calmly. "Or the next bullet goes through your skull." Chaos erupted. The Marchesi guards went for their weapons. Alessandro's team was faster. Gunfire echoed through the warehouse, and I dropped to the floor, covering my head, trying to make myself as small a target as possible. Someone grabbed me, one of Alessandro's men, hauling me toward cover behind a shipping container. More gunfire, shouting in Italian, the sharp smell of cordite, and then, suddenly, silence. I lifted my head cautiously. Alessandro's team had subdued the Marchesi guards. Carlo was on his knees, holding his bleeding shoulder, surrounded by guns, and Alessandro was cutting Vincent free. Vincent stood, swaying slightly, then his eyes found me across the warehouse. He covered the distance in seconds, pulling me into his arms with enough force to steal my breath. "You stupid, reckless, beautiful idiot," he muttered against my hair. "What the hell were you thinking?" "I was thinking I couldn't lose you. You almost got yourself killed." But I didn't. I pulled back enough to see his face, to check that he was really okay despite the bruises and blood. And neither did you. He kissed me then, hard and desperate, tasting of blood and relief. When we broke apart, Alessandro was standing nearby with an expression that might have been amusement. "The Marchesi situation?" Vincent asked, not taking his eyes off me. "Being handled. Carlo will be making a full surrender. His family's territory will be absorbed into ours. They'll sign whatever agreements we put in front of them. And if they don't?" Alessandro's smile was cold. "Then we remind them what happens to people who threaten what's ours." Vincent nodded, then turned back to me. "We're going home, now. Your face needs stitches." "I don't care. We're leaving." Maya's voice crackled over my phone, which I'd forgotten was still in my pocket. "Viv?" I heard gunshots. Should I call the police? The National Guard? What the hell is happening? I pulled out the phone. "It's okay. We're okay. I'll be right there." "We?" Vincent's eyebrow rose. "My friend Maya drove me here. She's waiting in the car." "Your friend?" He stopped, shaking his head. "We're discussing this later. All of it. The tracking, the rescue attempt, the complete disregard for your own safety. Looking forward to it." He kept his arm around me as Alessandro's team cleared out. As we walked past Carlo Marchesi still kneeling on the warehouse floor, as we emerged into the cold night air where Maya was leaning against her car looking simultaneously terrified and relieved. "You must be Maya," Vincent said. "And you must be the Mafia boss my best friend is inexplicably in love with." She looked him up and down. "You're bleeding on her coat." "I'm aware." "Good, because that coat was expensive." But her eyes softened. "Take care of her, or I will find a way to make you regret it." Vincent's lip curved slightly. "Noted." The ride back to the safe house was quiet. Vincent sat in the back of Alessandro's car, me tucked against his side, his arm wrapped around me like he was afraid I'd disappear if he let go. "I meant what I said in there," he said quietly. "I would have given them everything to keep you safe." "I know. Does that frighten you? How much power you have over me?" I thought about it. About the man I'd fallen in love with, who'd walked away from our wedding to protect me, who'd just offered to destroy everything he'd built for the same reason. "No," I said finally. "It doesn't frighten me, because I'd do the same for you." His arm tightened around me. "You already did. You walked into that warehouse with no backup and no plan except saving me. I had a plan. It just wasn't a very good one." He laughed, the sound rough but genuine. "No, it really wasn't." Back at the safe house, Teresa fussed over Vincent's injuries while I stood nearby, unable to let him out of my sight. The cut above his eye did need stitches. Alessandro called a doctor who was apparently on retainer for exactly these situations. While the doctor worked, Vincent held my hand, his thumb tracing circles on my palm. "We need to talk," he said once the doctor had left. "I know." He led me upstairs to the bedroom we'd shared the night before, sat me down on the bed and stood before me, his expression serious. "What you did today can never happen again." "Vincent, I mean it, Sophia. You could have been killed. If Alessandro hadn't tracked you, if his team hadn't arrived when they did, Carlo would have put a bullet in your head just to hurt me. But he didn't. We're both alive, and the Marchesis are no longer a threat." There will be other threats. There always are. He ran a hand through his hair. And I can't function knowing you might throw yourself into danger for me. I need to know you'll be safe. Then get out. He stared at me. What? Get out of this life. The crime, the violence, the constant danger. Build something legitimate. Something our children won't have to be ashamed of. Our children? I stood, meeting his eyes. Yes. Our children. Because I'm not going anywhere, Vincent. You can push me away, you can try to protect me, but I'm choosing this. Choosing you. Choosing us. And if you want me to stay safe, then you need to make a life where we both can be. It's not that simple. It never is, but you're smart, you're resourceful, and you have the money to go legitimate if you want to. I moved closer. The question is, do you want to? Or are you too attached to this world to leave it? He was quiet for a long moment. Then, my father used to say that men like us don't retire. We die in this life or we die trying to leave it. Your father was wrong about a lot of things. A small smile. He was. So? Vincent pulled me close, his hands framing my face. So I'll find a way. It won't be fast. And it won't be easy. But I'll find a way to build something different. Something better. He kissed me softly. For you. For us. Promise? I promise. Section 8. The battle. The transition took longer than either of us expected. 6 months of Vincent carefully divesting from illegal operations, finding buyers for territory, making deals that would have been unthinkable a year ago. 6 months of living in the safe house, of learning to navigate Vincent's world, of slowly becoming part of the family that Alessandro had said I already belonged to. But not everyone was happy about the changes. I was in the library, reviewing proposals from legitimate businesses Vincent was considering investing in, when Alessandro appeared in the doorway. His expression was grim. We have a problem. I looked up. What kind of problem? The kind where Vincent's own people are planning a coup. My blood ran cold. What? 3 of his captains. They think he's gone soft, that the move to legitimacy is weakness. They're planning to remove him and take over operations themselves. Does Vincent know? Not yet. He's at a meeting downtown. Alessandro checked his watch. A meeting they arranged. Sophia, it's a trap. I was already moving, grabbing my phone. Call him. Warn him. He's not answering. I think they jammed the signal. Then we go get him. Now. Alessandro shook his head. I'm taking a team. You're staying here where it's safe. Like hell I am. Miss Moretti, we're not doing this again. I grabbed my coat. You can either let me ride with you, or I'll follow in my own car. Your choice. He studied me for a moment, then sighed. You're as stubborn as he is. That's why it works. The meeting was at a restaurant in Midtown, upscale Italian place that Vincent's family had owned for decades. Alessandro's team surrounded the building while I waited in the car, despite every instinct screaming at me to go inside. 5 minutes, Alessandro said. If we're not out in 5 minutes, you call this number. He handed me a card. Federal agent. Vincent's been cooperating with them on the transition to legitimacy. They'll come. Vincent's working with the FBI? Part of the deal to get out clean. Now promise me you'll wait. I promise. He disappeared inside with his team, and I started counting. 4 minutes passed. Then 5. Then 6. I pulled out the card, my hand shaking as I dialed. Agent Morrison. My name is Sophia Moretti. I'm calling about Vincent Castellano. He's... Gunfire erupted inside the restaurant. I dropped the phone and ran. The scene inside was chaos. Tables overturned, glass shattered, people screaming. Alessandro's team was engaged with men, I recognized as Vincent's captains and their soldiers. And in the center of it all, Vincent fought hand-to-hand with Marco, one of the captains who'd been with his father's organization for 20 years. You're weak, Marco shouted, landing a punch that split Vincent's lip. Your father would be ashamed. Vincent blocked the next punch, countering with a brutal hit to Marco's ribs. My father's dead, and his way died with him. I spotted a gun on the floor, dropped by one of the soldiers. Without thinking, I grabbed it. Marco. Both men turned. I had the gun pointed at Marco, my hands shaking but my aim steady. Let him go. Marco laughed. Little Sophia. Vincent's pet project. You think you can pull that trigger? I don't want to, but I will if you don't step away from him. She won't do it, Marco said to Vincent. She's too soft, too normal. That's why you'll never make it in this world, Vincent. You're trying to build a life with a woman who doesn't have the stomach for what we do. You're right, I said quietly. I don't have the stomach for unnecessary violence, for hurting people because you can, for building empires on fear. I took a step closer, but I do have the stomach to protect the man I love. So step away from him. Now, Marco's hand moved toward his own weapon. I pulled the trigger. The shot went wide intentionally. It shattered a mirror behind Marco, raining glass down on him. But it proved the point. I would pull the trigger if I had to. Alessandro's team subdued Marco and the other conspirators. Federal agents swarmed in. Apparently Agent Morrison had taken my call seriously and sent backup. And Vincent pulled me into his arms, taking the gun from my shaking hands. "You're okay," he murmured. "We're okay." I almost shot him. "But you didn't. You made the right choice." He pressed a kiss to my forehead. "I'm so proud of you. Proud that I threatened to kill someone. Proud that you're strong enough to protect yourself. That you chose the minimal violence option even when you were terrified." He pulled back to look at me. "You're perfect. Absolutely perfect." Later, after statements had been given and the conspirators arrested, after we'd returned to the safe house and Teresa had fussed over both of us, Vincent and I sat in the library. "It's done," he said quietly. "Marco and the others will be charged with conspiracy, attempted murder. The FBI has enough evidence to put them away for decades. And your organization? Dissolved. The legitimate businesses will continue under a restructured company. Everything else." He shrugged. "Gone. How do you feel about that?" He considered the question. Relieved. Terrified. Free. He turned to me. "My father built that empire because he thought it was the only way to have power, to matter. But he was wrong. The things that matter you, the life we're building, the future we could have, none of that requires being a criminal. So what now? Now we start over. Clean slate." He pulled something from his pocket, a small velvet box. "Properly this time." My breath caught. "Vincent, I know I already proposed. I know we were supposed to get married 6 months ago. But that was different. That was when I was still trying to balance both worlds, still keeping secrets." He opened the box to reveal a ring. Simple, elegant, perfect. "This time I'm asking as just Vincent. Not a boss, not a criminal. Just a man who loves you and wants to spend the rest of his life proving it." Tears spilled down my cheeks. "Yes, God, yes." He slipped the ring on my finger, then kissed me with a tenderness that made my heart ache. "I promise," he whispered against my lips. "No more danger, no more secrets. Just us." "Just us," I agreed. Section 9, The New World. We got married 3 months later. Not in a church this time. I couldn't stomach the idea after what had happened. Instead, we held the ceremony in the gardens of the safe house, surrounded by the people who mattered. Maya stood as my maid of honor, making a speech that had everyone laughing and crying in equal measure. Alessandro was Vincent's best man, gruff and uncomfortable in his formal wear but clearly pleased. Teresa cried through the entire ceremony. Even Agent Morrison showed up, off duty, to wish us well. "You clean up nice?" "Castellano," he said, shaking Vincent's hand. "Legitimate business suits you." "It's an adjustment," Vincent admitted, "but a good one." My mother attended, though she sat in the back and left immediately after the ceremony. We'd never be close, but at least she'd come. That was something. As Vincent and I danced at the reception, his arms around me, I thought about the journey that had brought us here. The wedding dress I'd worn to beg him one last time, the way he'd walked past me like a stranger, the fear and danger and desperate choices. "What are you thinking about?" Vincent asked. "How far we've come, how different this is from what I imagined. Better or worse?" "Different." I smiled up at him. "But I wouldn't change it. Any of it led us here. Even the part where you tracked my phone and walked into a warehouse full of armed criminals. Especially that part. How else would you have known how stubborn I am?" He laughed, spinning me in a circle. "I knew that from the moment you wore a wedding dress to a gala. Best bad decision I ever made." "Second best," he corrected. "The best was saying yes when I asked you to curate my collection. That wasn't a bad decision. That was fate." "You believe in fate now?" "I believe in us. Same thing. 6 months after the wedding, we moved into a brownstone in Brooklyn. Not Tribeca, not the safe house, somewhere new that was just ours. Vincent's legitimate businesses were thriving real estate development, an art gallery that I ran, investments in tech startups. We had Sunday dinners with Alessandro and his wife, who'd emerged from the shadows once the danger was past. Maya came over constantly. usually bringing Leo, who'd decided Vincent was the coolest person he'd ever met despite or maybe because of his criminal past. And one Tuesday morning, 9 months after our wedding, I stood in our bathroom staring at a positive pregnancy test. Vincent found me there 20 minutes later, still staring. "Sophia, everything okay?" I held up the test wordlessly. His eyes widened. Then a smile spread across his face, the kind that reached his eyes and made him look younger than his years. "We're having a baby." "We're having a baby," I confirmed. He pulled me into his arms, holding me like I was something precious. "Our child is going to have the most normal, boring, safe life imaginable." "Boring might be a stretch with you as a father." "Fine. Mostly normal, slightly interesting, completely safe." I laughed against his chest. "I love you. I love you too. More than I thought possible." Epilogue. 2 years later, I stood in the gallery, adjusting the lighting on a new installation, while our daughter, Isabel, played in the office with the nanny Vincent, had insisted we hire after I'd returned to work. The gallery had become exactly what I'd always dreamed of, a space for emerging artists, for pieces that made you feel something rather than just increasing in value. Vincent had given me complete control, trusting my vision entirely. "Sophia?" Vincent's voice called from the front. "You have visitors." I emerged from the back to find him standing with Alessandro and a young woman I didn't recognize. She looked nervous, probably early 20s, clutching a portfolio. "This is Emma," Vincent said. "She reached out about potentially showing her work here." I smiled at her. "Let me see what you have." Her work was raw, emotional, exactly the kind of thing I looked for. We talked for an hour about her vision, her process, her hopes for the future. By the end, we'd scheduled her first show. After she left, practically floating with excitement, Vincent pulled me into his arms. "You have a gift for this, for seeing talent, for helping people believe in themselves." I learned from the best. I kissed him softly. "Speaking of which, how was your meeting?" "Successful. The Henderson project is moving forward." He was developing affordable housing now, using his knowledge of real estate for good instead of profit. "Should break ground next month." "I'm proud of you. I'm proud of us." His hand found mine, fingers interlacing. "Look at what we built." I looked around the gallery, at the art on the walls, at the life we'd created, thought about Isabel in the back office, about the home waiting for us in Brooklyn, about Sunday dinners and normal problems, and a future that didn't involve looking over our shoulders. "Yeah," I said softly. "We did pretty well, didn't we?" "Better than I ever imagined." He pulled me closer. "You know what the best part is?" "What?" "We're just getting started." And he was right. This was just the beginning of our family, our life, our story. No more mafia, no more danger, no more desperate plays and wedding dresses. Just two people who'd found each other in the midst of chaos and built something beautiful from the wreckage. Just Vincent and Sophia, partners in every sense of the word, writing the next chapter together. And that, I thought as Isabel's laughter echoed from the back office and Vincent's arms tightened around me, was exactly the ending we deserved. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.